Welcome to the Independent Artist Podcast, sponsored by the National Association of Independent Artists.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. I'm Will Armstrong, and I'm a mixed media artist.
I'm Douglas Sigworth, glassblower. Join our conversations with professional working artists. Hey, welcome back to the show, everyone. Will, how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm just peachy, Douglas. It's lovely.
Peachy?
Yeah, lovely to be back on the air with you.
Having a little bit of signs of spring outside today here in Wisconsin, so it's hopeful. It's hopeful that it's actually going to happen here. We're going to have a change in season. That'll be nice.
Oh, that's a fascinating topic.
All right, everyone, keep listening now for riveting conversations on the podcast. Let's talk about the weather.
About politics, too?
I might as well. Well.
Everything's going to hell, so it's
everything is.
Let's keep it topical. No, that is nice. The birds are chirping, and I had to shut the windows here in Santa Fe, so the birds are on the move and headed north, headed your way.
On full disclosure, we are recording this preamble quite a bit earlier than typical because we both have a big run of shows coming up here. I've got Winter Park, and then we've got Bayou City, and I'm going to be on the road solid, so we needed to get the kind of recorded ahead of time. So if everything goes to hell over the next couple of weeks, we won't be able to talk about it until after Fort Worth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to Texas, and I'm headed back east, too. Headed all the way back to the East Coast for Artisphere coming up in May, too, after my Texas run. So haven't been back to my old stomping grounds in, gosh, it's been almost 2 years.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Headed home. Got to see my folks.
How close to home is Artisphere?
About 7 hours.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that does feel real close, doesn't it?
Really, really close. And I haven't been back to Richmond. Haven't seen my folks in over a year. And so, yeah, I will not be partying in Greenville. My folks are actually coming down for the show. So it'll be fun to see them.
So nobody be twisting Will's arm because he's got to be present and alert for the fam.
Well, yeah, right? Yeah, it'll be a different kind of show, but it'll be fun to see everybody on the road too. So, what do you got going on, sir?
I'm flying out tomorrow for this next run. I know we talked on the pod last week about what I'm dealing with physically. So this is going to be a 2-week endeavor to see just how I can maneuver at the shows with my current condition with having these foot braces on my ankles and feeling like I'm wearing 2 walking casts on my feet.
Do not be shy about offering Douglas some help. We got your back, sir. You're going to be all right. Hopefully. Are you at all thinking about if this goes poorly? Are you thinking about surgery early? I am. Are you?
I haven't wanted to talk about my sweet spring schedule because I don't hate to brag, but when any of us artists are handed just the sweetest of sweet schedules and then you're told you can't do that, it's like I'd have to be in a coma not to do this spring schedule. So I'm going to try my damnedest to make it happen, but my body might not let me. So I'll find out in the next couple of weeks just what I can do and what I can't do.
Yep. We're all rooting for you. So, be strong. We don't have to talk anymore on that topic. It's a big one. We'll see how it goes.
I wanted to talk to you about this, Will. You've been working in your new studio. You've been cranking out some brand new work.
Yep.
We've been working on a new series ourselves. And we're getting real close to showing some of these new pieces that we've been working on for what feels like 6-8 months.
Yeah.
And I've got some big nerves about it.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. And you texted me some photos of some new of yours that's just, really cool and quite different than what you've done. Do you ever get nervous putting new stuff like that out in the public?
Yeah, I always do. I mean, that I have a bad case of imposter syndrome, where I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I definitely do, and I guess I don't talk about it, but, I'll make some new pieces and it takes a minute before I'm really confident in showing them. I think I was talking to William Kwame about this. He is always confident in his new work. He's like, it's good. And I'm like, I was super jealous of that. And I just don't get that right away. So I'll finish a new piece and I'll take a picture of it with my phone. And, I put words in my work for the first time. I'd never done that. And I've really been wanting to. And I talked to, I don't know if you know the artist Bennett. She uses words in her work all the time. And I remember, like, at the beginning of COVID, texting her and just like trying to get a little advice and get a little confidence and be like, how do you finish a painting, and like, how do you go about having the confidence to throw words down on top of it? It could just completely screw up the entire thing. And she was like, yeah. I don't know. You just do it. Just go for it. And so I did. I put words down and I took a picture of it with my phone. And I don't know. I look at it later. I walk away from it. I clean up. I shut the door on the studio. I walk away. And the nice thing about having the shop about 20 minutes from the house is I can't go back and stare at it. It wasn't until the next day. And so I didn't even look at the picture on my phone. I walked into the studio and saw the new piece. And I was like, well, damn. I'm excited about that. That
got exciting.
Yeah,
cool.
It did. So
Nice.
I've got the confidence, and the biggest danger in the words, to be honest, with me is like, I don't want to turn it into like masculine live, laugh, love. With these sayings of the shit on the wall, and it's not, but.
Well, we do that with the podcast here. We go back and forth with titles, and we do, like, we get a little bit in our heads about, is that trite, or is that, like, generic? You want your title and your caption to not dumb down the piece in a way.
Right. Exactly. This, to me, like, I did these, and you'll see these, I guess, on Instagram or whatever, but, they're kind of like gunslinger or cowboy portraits, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out where I fit in with the West, and the map that I used for the background of this piece. I've talked about this before, but the cartographer, one of the cartographers that documented the Native American territories from Fort Leavenworth all the way out to Salt Lake, including the top portion of New Mexico, was a member of our family. He was a great, great, great uncle of ours.
Oh.
And then another member of our family who you can look up in the history books. It's pretty cool. He was a big leader in the Whig Party. And Willie P. Mangum, but he took that map from all the way out in Salt Lake and carried it back to D.C. in his saddlebags when he was headed back east on the back of a horse. So, I mean, there's some cool connections that I have, and seriously dark connections too, because a map of the Native American territories was not used for as something other than to control the indigenous people of the United States.
Take over and say, this is mine now.
Right. Well, here's where we go in and kill all the horses and round up all the buffalo. And so it's, trying to come to terms with that. So they are just kind of, they're cool gunslinger portraits, but they're also, have my own connection to history.
Wow. We talk a lot about yin and yang with the podcast, but Renee and I have that same kind of yin and yang with our glass work. And, these new pieces we're working on, she feels really confident. She sees them and she says, I like them. And if she likes them, she feels confident to put it out in the world, and that's enough. But for me, I do kind of what you're talking about. I go, well, there's this and there's that, and what if it's that and this, and it back and forth, and maybe it's the Libra thing. I don't know. But I also have a little bit of the imposter thing going. Like, I feel like I don't want anything that we make to replicate anything we've seen.
Yeah.
And then you start doing it, and we see so much great stuff out there. You don't want your influences to seem like a knockoff or an attempt at a knockoff. So I'll be like, well, we can't do that because it looks like this. We can't do that because it looks like that.
Yeah.
And so we really strive to make our stuff look uniquely us, which adds a little bit of a stressful complication for me in the process.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I went through the same thing with this series because I wanted to use different parts of collage, and I wanted to use, like, on top of that map that I talked about, I wanted to use, like, some old comic books, like Western comic books too, and I ended up not using those. I have a whole pile of them that I bought, and I didn't use them because it was starting to look a little bit like somebody else's work, and I'm like, I can't do that. I don't want to step on those toes. I don't want to get out there and be like, oh, this looks like Dolan. And I'm like, well, I freaking love Dolan, and I don't want to, I could see, if you look at the pieces that I created, they don't look anything like his work. It's 100% me. But I don't know, you definitely catch yourself, Dolan's a good friend, and I super admire his work too, so I don't want to look anything like it,
Yeah.
I don't want that person coming in the booth and being like, I saw the same thing down the street. It's like, oh, brutal. There's nothing worse.
Yeah. The other thing that is different about what we're working on, and this might kind of be a good thing for me moving forward with what I'm dealing with physically, is we're doing blown components that we're working in a different way. We're using smaller components that we're remelting in an oven, putting them together into larger pieces. So these pieces, it used to be, when we blow something, we could spend an hour on a piece, put it in the oven the next day, do some finishing work for a few hours. But the turnaround rate is pretty quick on some blown vessels, for example. But when you're working on components and then putting them together into something bigger, we're investing a lot more time and energy to finish an entire just single piece.
Right.
And that's different than how I've worked before. So that also puts a little bit of pressure being in like a new element that I'm not comfortable with or familiar with.
Yeah, that makes sense. So here's a question for you. I feel like I'm interviewing you. When you create a new piece like this, how long are you going to give it in your booth if it doesn't sell?
An hour. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I bet I'm not far off, right? Like
I probably am going to be tormented in Fort Worth, because I think that's going to be the first time these pieces see the public eye. I'm going to be like, shit, they hate it. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've heard you say the same thing, you're just like, okay, I'm going to put it in the back. I mean, we all want that experience like Daryl Thetford talked about in his episode last year, The Courage to Say No. He just happened to have a new piece leaning against the display, and somebody said, hey, what's this piece? And you know what I mean? The demand just jumped right in, and it just took off like wildfire.
Right.
That's a gift. That's a gift to have somebody respond to your new work like that.
Yeah, it is. And that's how I want to be. I've got a kind of a Western series and then my more urban series. It's giving me the freedom to create different stuff. And I have always had that freedom. I don't know. And, this takes us right into the Mark Winter thing. But Mark talks about that this week, about just creating what he wants to make. And I'm doing a bit of that.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question for you. You're working on the Emerging Artists program through NAIA.
Right.
And, there's a lot of wheels in motion and stuff. We're making the opportunity, or we're reaching out to young folks to come into this industry. I'm starting to wonder if this industry is even what they want. I mean, are we extending an olive branch and there's like, do they want to come to the streets and sell like what we've been doing for years? What's your impression on the matter on that one?
My impression is that it takes somebody kind of special to do it. Like, I don't even know if the young woman who won the Best in Show in Gasparilla, I don't know if she wants to do shows, Like, is she...
I'm telling you, yeah.
Like,
that's where this question comes from. I see people who are making incredible work, and you go to their Instagram pages, and they've got, these thousands and thousands of followers, and they put something up and they immediately get reactions like crazy. You go to their website and it looks like it's all primed for selling online. I mean, It kind of seems like that marketplace is for that age group.
Maybe. But then you've got like Jaja, and Jaja's in, he wants to do shows. He's going to be at Fort Worth this week, and he's doing some emerging artist stuff since it's like year one, or year 1.5 for his business. So that's exciting to see somebody young and as talented as he is. So that's awesome. Look at any group of artists, right? Across the board, gallery or road artists, whatever you want to call it. And it does take a special person. So I don't think this industry is dead or dying, but I do think it may take special kind of person, just like it always has, to convince them to come in and join us on the street. So, I think it's still got legs. And
the collectors on the road, I mean, are the collectors skewing older and older, or do we have a demographic that is ready to replace our parents who've been buying for years and years and years?
I feel like I still sell to pretty young people, you know?
Do you?
Yeah,
Cool.
I've definitely sold people their first painting, and I have collectors. You know, this great couple in Chicago that has a couple of my pieces too that are in their late 30s, early 40s. So, I mean, you have to be established enough in order to afford it. We ain't cheap, but it would be interesting to talk to Camille about that from Coconut Grove. She was talking about how do you get younger people to come in and buy the work, and she was talking about maybe introducing reproductions into it, and I don't agree with that. I like my originals only show, even though I do have some reproductions that I sell like at maybe 1 or 2 shows a year. I don't know.
I did talk to her a little bit about that at Coconut Grove weeks ago. She said that they hired a PR firm, and she kept feeling like this PR firm was skewing to the young people. And she kept saying, listen, you gotta keep, and they're like, trust us, we know what we're doing. And she said she did, and the results spoke for themselves. They brought in the people, they brought in the buyers, and a lot of artists said they had really great shows.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe there is a little bit of a reinvention of the marketing, a reinvention of a lot of things that we just need to kind of step back and assess.
Yeah. And you know, this conversation that I had with her was pre-Coconut Grove. So I don't know where she's thinking now as far as that goes. You know, I think the thing that could really attract young people is the fact that you work for yourself in this industry. You're completely your own boss, and it really does seem to fit in line with what the millennial attitude that I'm seeing, you know, kind of who are you? I don't want to go to this job or that job. They only want to work for themselves. I think this would be perfect for that group. Yeah. We need more people like Nanika to come in and kick all of our asses because her work is incredible. I want more young people in the business.
Just so you know, she would not be considered a millennial, Will. She would be a Gen Z. My children are Gen Z, and they hate it when we call them millennial. And I say, you know what? If you don't like being called a millennial, then stop calling me a boomer.
Okay, boomer. Yeah, exactly. Good point. Nice comeback.
All right.
Because nothing makes you sound like, actually, young man, the boomer is from the baby boom after World War II. And then you're going to get, okay,
I've just fallen asleep now listening to you explain that. They're like,
no, that's like back. You hit that. And then it's like their only response is like, okay, boomer. They just hit you.
Okay, boomer. I'm like, shut the fuck up with the boomer. All right. Hey, so you had a great talk with Mark Winter this week. And as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking to myself, this is just like a series of outrageous stories. I mean, he's got the best stories in this interview, Will.
He does. That's what I love about Mark, and I was hoping we could capture some of that in our talk, and I couldn't have been happier with the results. So sitting down with Mark was a super easy talk for me. I always look forward to seeing him at shows, and he's one of the funniest guys I know. So looking forward to everybody hearing the talk.
All right. Here is Mark Winter, sculptor from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
This episode of the Independent Artist Podcast is brought to you by Zap, the digital application service where artists and art festivals connect.
Hey, Will, do you remember the old way of doing these applications with red dots on the slides and self-addressed stamped envelopes?
Do you still have a rotary phone, Douglas? No, I don't remember that.
Well, I just like that they were with us back then when we made the switch from analog to digital.
It's a huge switch, and now Zap is the industry standard.
And they're always creating features that make our lives easier too. So I do like what Zap does, and I do like that most of the shows I apply to are on Zapplication.
Exactly. So I personally appreciate what Zap is doing, and thanks for not making us reinvent the wheel every single week like we used to have to do.
Nice to see you.
Hey, man.
I've got my notes here. I just I tried to spell what a fart would sound like. So I think
it should just be one of us makes the fart noises and one of us giggles. And it'll be the Will and Mark Giggle and Fart Hour. That's all we're going to do.
It sounds good. We might have our own spin-off podcast.
What else are we going to talk about that you already haven't covered? I mean,
I mean, yeah, just that, right? I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about our conversations that we've had at shows, and it pretty much is giggling fart hour.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What's happening up there in Milwaukee?
Well, currently getting ready for Winter Park.
Okay.
We're heading down soon.
I was surprised you were available because so many people are doing the Gasparilla. You're not a Gasparilla guy.
Yeah, I am. Sure.
Okay.
I just the way the calendar fell and the way things happen and family stuff and life in general.
Yeah,
it worked out. But
is Winter Park your first one?
Yeah.
Then
since it was it'll be the first one. So last time I saw you were getting pulled over just outside of Denver. How'd that work out for you?
That was okay. Sorry, I was whipping through. I was excited to be like almost there at Cherry Creek. And I had been really good about driving right around the speed limit. And there was a construction zone. And I just completely blew right through it. Didn't slow down, going like 75. And it had been a 70 or a 75 right before that. Didn't slow down for the construction site. Was right in line with traffic. And they pulled everybody in the line.
Really?
Like the entire row.
Yeah, now that makes sense.
And,
I didn't know if it was an accident. I'm like, do I pull over and see if he's okay? Like, no, he's fine. He's just he's probably racing to get to the dispensary is closed at 4:30 and he was 4:20. He had to get there in time.
I think you had you texted me something smart ass, kind of like a cautionary, like way to go, asshole, or something like that. But it was me and then a whole line of cars, and of course I think I have the most recognizable art show vehicle on the circuit. But the huge truck with all the stickers on the back and like, oh, there he is.
There he is. Pick you up from a mile away. We got pulled over on the way home in Nebraska as we entered across the state line. Or where were we? We were somewhere.
Were they checking to make sure that you didn't have any dirty green things?
He was bird dogging me, man. He wouldn't let me change lanes, and he pulls me over for tailgating. I'm not a tailgater. Drive a big truck. It's like you don't fuck around on the road, and take it pretty seriously. So he knew he was bullshitting me, but so he said, well, you know what? I'm just going to give you a warning because well, why don't you come on back to the truck? We'll get that warning straightened out for you. I'm like, oh, okay. And I go back into the squad car, and here's his little companion, Officer Major, the K9. And I go, what's your dog's name? What's your dog's name? What's Major? I'm like, hey, Major. And I didn't have it. I don't smoke when I'm driving. Yeah. Certainly, it's just not worth it. But he did ask me, he's like, so did you visit any dispensaries out there? I'm like, no, sir. Really not my thing, I said. And he's like, so what are you doing out there? Where were you? And I'm like, oh, we're artists. We're traveling. And right. Looks like I got tinted windows, but it's not. It's just stickers, But
oh, right.
So, yeah, he picked me out of the crowd for sure. But
you've talked about those tinted windows down in Florida. They get you for those? Or is that what they're for?
I don't know, man. They came with the truck when I bought it from Ray and Patricia. It was theirs, Ray Alfonso.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the way it came, but it's dark. You can't see in. I don't know if it's even legal. I don't even know. I've never had a problem.
Well, if you've got those stickers on your van, you don't have to pull over at the the agricultural pullovers in Florida.
Yeah, I've had people say, be careful if you're driving a rig that size or whatever, because they can fuck you if they want to, but I've never had any problems. I don't know.
I've been pulled over for the Florida inspection sites before, but when haven't I been pulled over?
Well, you think of all the miles we put on, how few things do happen. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's true.
Mostly good.
We're talking about COVID and dealing with assumed risk, and I feel like it's riskier. I mean, it feels like we're kind of on the other side of this thing finally, but and I don't want to get bogged down talking too much COVID stuff, but it does feel like an assumed risk with what we do for a living.
Right.
And all of the traffic stops and everything else that we throw ourselves on the line for.
Right. It's rough out there.
It is rough out there.
Stick together.
So what are you working on?
Well, let's see. I've been feeling really good, man. The studio time has been like prolific and relaxed.
Nice.
And just stuff is flowing like never before. I feel,
amazing.
I don't know. Every once in a while, you feel like I make this step up the ladder, as far as craft, it's
you're feeling it right now.
Yeah. It feels kind of the same as it has for the last 20 or 30 years, but sometimes you just go, oh, that's a lot better than it was before. If I take my time and make things that I want to make, I think lockdown and kind of reset my process.
Some people that worked that way.
I know. Am I the only one that misses lockdown? I thought it was kind of great.
I mean, it was kind of great at certain points of it. We were up in Minnesota and we were kind of between places to live, and we were trying to get down here to Santa Fe, and I dug that studio time a lot. Yeah. But now I just rented a new space, so that I'm looking forward to that being the next kind of renaissance of creating work again.
And you're gonna commute, is that right?
Yeah, I'm gonna commute. It's I just took the keys this morning, so I'm excited for the space. The light is really good in there, so I'm looking forward to it. I can work really big if I want. I've got like 12, 14 foot ceilings, so I was thinking about doing some massive ones.
Oh yeah, that's a game changer.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I was going to ask you, I mean, I know a little bit of your history, and you grew up with an art background. You have artists in the house growing up, and tell the folks kind of how you grew up.
I was told I was conceived at an art fair. So
were you really at an art? Do you know which one?
I think it was probably somewhere in Madison. I don't know which one. I guess it was slow sales that day, or I don't know. But I was my mother had been doing shows for 40 years. All the little small. Way before there was tents, and way before there was, I think you just showed up with your work and a bottle of wine and some
pin it to the fence that's there.
Exactly,
or
right.
Whatever.
Throw a blanket on the ground and see what happens. So they did that for a long time, and I grew up kind of going to fairs with her and kind of being an art fair brat.
Did you know the other kind of art fair brats too? Like, did you run across like Kemper and Bruno?
A little, like Patrick Nettebeck maybe was the only one, but he was a little older. Don Nettebeck's, so he's been a friend for a very long time, but he was just old enough where we weren't friends. He was a big kid, He was cool. He was a cool kid. I don't remember socializing with any of them really, but it was good. And my mom taught art in our basement in our home. So every Saturday there'd be 20 or 15 kids in the basement for 3 hours doing
like
clay.
What age groups?
Like grade school, young.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I remember hating it. Because I would want to play upstairs, and she's like, quit running around up there. I grew up on 20 acres, but of course I have to play in the one spot where she's teach class. So I remember she invited me to come down, and I'm like, I'm not doing your stupid art classes. That's stupid. So I rebelled against it, of course.
Yeah, of course. She's lucky she didn't end up with a Republican.
Right. I was heading that way, believe me.
Investment banker.
Yeah. So there was clay and still lifes and crayons and oil paints and pastels and just kids making stuff. And she had a kiln, and it was cool. And then at the end of the summer, there'd be a group show where all the kids would come and be outside and make balloon sculptures. And I don't know, it was wild.
Yeah, but it opened you up to it a little bit once you kind of got over hating it.
Yeah. So I did finally pay attention, and it was great having that. As I decided to become an art fair artist, just having someone with experience going, here, call this person, bring this, you need a tent, you need this. I remember my first art fair was in Cedarburg, Wisconsin, the little, whatever, Apple Fest or Strawberry Days, whatever fall fruit related festival. There's cider. There's shit on sticks and little signs that say, 5 o'clock somewhere and all that stuff.
Of course.
But
we live up Minnesota during the summertime, and you get a lot of lake oriented puns.
Yeah.
A lot of Lake It Easy, and Lake It to the Limit, and I don't know, a lot of Eagles themes somehow.
Yeah. Oh man. So that was it. That's how I got started. I did this little art fair, and I think I made $1,000.
Man, isn't that like, first 1,000 feeling?
God, that could have been. That 1,000 felt like $1 million.
Yeah.
It was incredible. I couldn't believe it. So I was doing auto body repair. I have an associate's degree in automotive collision repair science and technology or something like that.
Okay. So was it kind of like a trade school?
Yeah. Yep.
I
went to Laramie Tech or Wyoming Tech in Laramie.
Yeah.
It was great.
Those are so underrated as far as learning skills.
It was, I'm glad I did it. No regrets for sure. And it led me to all my tools that I still use today, basically. I have the same welder, and then it got me into the shop and gave me the space to work. And I just started not working on shitty, rusty 1973 Novas or whatever it was. Yeah. It's just, God, that work is just thankless and
crushing.
Oh God.
Yeah. But that's where you learned how to stack nickels, I guess,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And all the materials I used for my first piece came from just stuff that was on my floor, from broken car parts or whatever, piece of a fender or whatever it was. And it's like, this was pretty cool. And then someone paid me for it. And I was like, light bulb.
Yeah. It's an amazing feeling. I remember you mentioned early on about like just making what you want to make, but you do that and you make exactly what you want to make, it seems like. And, the audience be damned, or it comes to you.
Yeah.
But that seems to be kind of what your audience expects from you, I would imagine. But,
I've been thinking a lot about this whole podcast idea and talking about our lives and art and things. And humor certainly is a part of my work, and I love when it is. They don't always have to be dark and whatever. But I was given some really good advice early on too. I have a couple of really good mentors, and one of them was that not everything has to be a masterpiece.
Right?
And you move on, you make what you want to make, and I just have always done it. It's like if I try, I make a mess. If
absolutely,
I'm going to sit down and make this, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I get frustrated and I get, but I'm always there working on something, whether it's successful or not, doesn't really matter. The work is what's important, I think.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the faces that I'll draw on the notes that I leave for my wife are better than I think the artwork. I'm working on a piece and I'm trying to get super uptight. And then I start making those faces inside the pieces and I'm like, why not? And nobody ever, they're like, oh, I love that guy.
Yeah.
And so you just do exactly what you want.
Right.
And I feel like the audience comes like, there was a piece when we were hanging out a little bit at New Orleans Jazz Fest. And we had this little guy in the back of your booth that seemed like totally just for you. I can't remember if it was on a crank or if you just pulled the, you remember that piece, but he just seemed like he was for you.
Right.
And I mean, he's probably gone. He's probably long since sold.
I think that is true. And I, to me, that's it's just the most honest way to do it.
Yeah.
If I try to make a product, I just will, and that's where I've always felt like process is so much more important than product to me.
Yeah.
Labor is more important than the fruits of the labor, I think. For me, anyway.
You mentioned having mentors early on.
Yeah.
How did you go about finding them, or how did they find you?
I was just, again, with my mother being kind of in the fold. There was a pastel painter named Greg McIntosh. I don't know if you ever came across him. He's from Ohio. And he's a nomad, would just do the Midwest circuit in the summertime. And he became friends with my mom because they're both spiritual and healers and givers and kindness, Nice. And he had no place to stay. So he would stay in my parents' unused camper trailer for months sometimes. He'd come and just do Old Town, do Lakefront, do Uptown, whatever it was. And he would stay at my parents' farm. We set a little studio up behind my studio. And he just became my late night critique, scotch drinking, wise, incredibly wise man. And he didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, but he always found money to leave a book behind for me. He would leave this beautiful Francis Bacon museum books that I don't know where you wouldn't get them from. Somehow, every time you'd leave, there'd be another book.
That's amazing.
Or another, something. And it's just, boy, he changed my life for sure.
Yeah.
And then I was, Beth's father is a photographer, and he was working at a really big advertising studio here in Milwaukee. And I would go and kind of work odd jobs there and make props before there was Photoshop and things like that. So I would physically make things they needed for these shots. And one of the photographers there was another cool guy and just knew about cool music and turned me on to Joel Peter Witkin and
oh man,
all this stuff. Like, I don't know, how do you find that when you're by yourself in the Midwest? Like,
yeah, you can't.
Right,
I feel like there always has to be, like with music or books or both, like the cool older brother,
right?
Your nerdy friend are hanging out. Exactly. And it's like, get out of my room, and then you look at the stack.
Quit playing my Audio Speedwagon records. Get out of here.
Right. I mean, like, have you heard of? It's like, here, listen to this. Okay, but don't touch it.
Yeah.
So
exactly. I was lucky, man. They kind of came to me, and I don't know, timing, I suppose, and me being willing to listen and pay attention.
Yeah.
And take it seriously.
Taking it seriously is huge. Yeah. I mean, listening to the things, and sometimes they plant little seeds that you don't realize you're going to work on until much later.
Yeah.
But,
Well, that's what they were talking about. Right.
Yeah. And you've done that. I met a couple of people. I bought a painting from your buddy Gabe. I feel like you were kind of taking him a little bit under your wing and trying to show him some art shows. So you've passed that on through the years too, that kind of mentorship.
For sure. I do think so. We try, and and it's kind of funny because we tried with some other friends here in Milwaukee. They were interested in, so like, how's this work? I'm like, well, we borrowed them a spare tent we had. They got into Madison off the square. We made sure they were next to us so that we could kind of be there for them because they didn't know how to use ratchet straps or how to do anything,
Right.
And it wasn't for them. They just were paralyzed in the back of the booth going, nope. And as far as I know, they never did another show again.
And sometimes the light goes on over people's heads, and they're like, "Oh shit, I would never want to work another regular job again."
Right.
And then you're hooked.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Douglas talked to your buddy Tom
Wargen. Yeah.
Yeah, Wargen. So Tom Wargen talked to Douglas, and
cool.
You've helped him a little bit.
Yeah, man. He helps me when I help him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
His studio's close. He's about 2 miles.
Nice.
And I mean, that guy is just a wealth of tech information and cool thing. I mean, if I have a problem that I can't solve or I can't fix, he's the guy that gets the call.
He's the guy.
Hey, can you? And I feel like I'm always asking for something. It's like, so giving back is also really cool too.
Yeah.
And we help each other out. Of course, it's good to have a network of.
Yeah, you guys have kind of have a little art scene going on in Milwaukee a little bit. You've got Tom and I don't know. Well, NASCAR's up there too now.
That's right.
He just moved up there. I don't know if you've seen him yet, but he's in his little.
He owes me $100. So
does he?
Yeah.
Were you part of that $100 chain that we passed around at Cherry Creek? I feel like that one cracked me up, but it was like. I thought you gave Whipple $100 to move something somewhere.
Oh, that's right.
And then he gave that back to, and then I gave you, and it was like it just kind of went around in circles. You ended up taking a big painting up to Milwaukee for me that I'd sold at Lakefront, and but he hadn't decided until Cherry Creek. But
had
to
and then again back to the network of people. Like, how cool is that? Like, can you take this to here? Absolutely. We're going there right now. Put it in the van.
Yeah.
As much as I sometimes like to bitch about art fairs and all the work and just like, where are we going? And the weather's going to suck. Those things are just so priceless. And the characters we meet along the way and the stuff. And it's pretty great. We're pretty lucky. We're lucky dogs.
We get to be sentimental about it right now because we haven't done that many shows in the last 2 years.
Ask me when I'm somewhere in Georgia filling up my tank for the 19th time at $5 a gallon.
Seriously, you can't even use your credit card one time after it hits it's like it automatically shut off at $100. I'm like, I still got 50 to go. If you're going to charge me $5 a freaking gallon for my 30-gallon tank, what's happening this year for you guys? What's going on?
Right, so kind of the usual, I guess. We're still the Jazz Fest. Oh, nice Jazz Fest. We are the first. Can you believe it? Then Old Town.
We've got memories that you're my favorite date at Jazz Fest.
I was thinking about that today. Like, Jazz Fest is just such a special thing,
It is.
We are such a barnacle on the ass of the music festivals. Like, we're just so happy to be there. It's like,
right.
No one's going to give a shit if we're not there or not. It's like, oh, there's not that overpriced sculpture dude here. Oh boy, damn it! Like, no one's
okay.
But the music is so good, and the food and the.
Oh, it's incredible.
Oh, it's the best. I've had tears of joy coming down my face many times at Jazz Fest because you just have the experience that it's hard to explain unless you do it, And the food, we can go on about Jazz Fest all day, but we have Cherry Creek, I guess, and
nice.
We'll see the rest. Des Moines, most likely.
Cool.
I'm probably forgetting 5 other ones, but
you guys, do you always do the same? Like, ever have trouble ever split up, or do you guys just do the same stuff?
I mean, it's obviously not always up to us, right? If one of us gets in, one of us doesn't. We've been pretty lucky for the most part. We get into most things we apply to. Not always, of course, but
you're operating at a high level. It's not like
right, exactly, right.
You're doing the same stuff.
There's one van, so it's going, or you're going in it, or you're not going. That's the kind of thing.
You guys ever do just go along as support, or no?
Yeah.
Cool. Any competition on that front at all, or the metal and paint keeps you away from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh no, we're a team. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I can't imagine. It's just a lot of work for one person.
It is.
But we make it work, and we always have fun, and we at least try to. We like each other, so it works out,
I mean, that's everything.
Yeah. And just also having someone for critique is such a big thing. Like I've got 3 pieces in the kitchen right now that I bring home because I talk about commuting. I commute too. Beth mostly paints in our house. Okay. But I commute about half an hour, just under half an hour every day. And
different part of Milwaukee.
So my studio is a suburb of Milwaukee called Menominee Falls, about half hour.
Just you, or you have other folks working there?
It's my parents' property where I grew up.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So I'm spoiled. It's big and free, and what more can you say?
Big and free is
big and free is. I mean, I've got acres of stuff. My studio probably takes up about 4 acres.
Oh my God!
I would say.
How much like foundry stuff and
the building and all just random things and scrap metal and things I've been collecting. See, I've got a lot of crap, way too much.
Yeah. You have kind of a junkyard out there?
Yeah, basically. It's like a mini junkyard, exactly. And my dad is a retired engineer, excavating and grading engineer. So he basically drove bulldozers his whole life, right? Okay. So he operated heavy equipment. So we've got a little Mustang skid loader, so I can pick things up and move things around, and it's huge.
Yeah.
I go there and go through my junkyard and pick up random pieces that I've collected.
Random pieces that you've been working on.
Kind of bring them in the studio.
Where do you get your stuff then? Like, where are you like junk collecting, or do you have to buy a flat steel?
I try not to buy any new steel. I really don't need to. I like when I do because it's just easy to work with and clean and all that. So I'm doing more and more of new metal lately because it's just so much easier. But the first 18 years or so, I just was constantly picking up scrap wherever I get my hands on it. Some ill-gotten, some legally, we don't need to know the details. No. And once the word starts spreading that people bring me stuff all the time, I'll come to my shop and there'll be a pile of stuff at the door.
Do you like that?
Oh yeah. Almost always. But you got to take the good with the bad. There's, of course, my uncle drops off his broken TV. It's like, thanks. Not that kind of junkyard, dude. But
right, you got a lot of trips to the dump. Yeah. Thanks.
Do you want this microwave? What? No.
Yeah.
Does it work?
The fact that I work on collage, I end up taking bags of stuff to the recycling for people. Mm-hmm. Like, well, that's not what I thank you. Okay, yeah, right. That's not what I do.
But on the good end, people bring me another uncle. Just he's a picker and he's a collector, and he just finds stuff and brings me this stuff. I've got, I don't know, probably a half a dozen, or maybe it comes and goes. People it's really interesting to watch what people do. I can tell who brought the pile over by what's in it. Right. Because it's got their signature. Like, oh, that's Uncle Dick because there's a little piece of brass there or whatever it is.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
So what kind of stuff are they bringing you?
It's so random.
Old tools
and like antique lamp parts and just some sheet metal or lawnmower parts. Like there's a small engine mechanic farmer down the road that saves spark plugs for me when he's done, and the old metal lawnmower shrouds, and old Simplicity bits, and that kind of led to, I don't know, the other body of my work is the balls of junk.
Yeah.
And those kind of came out of that. Holy shit, why do I have 700 oil cans? Or, why do I have 9,000 wrenches what am I doing? Right. What the fuck is wrong with me? And then the balls kind of came out of that, out of just, well, let's use them instead. I mean, they don't do any good sitting in a box.
Right.
So I just started making the balls, and man, every one I've made, I've sold so far. It's like,
that's awesome.
And they're always different, but they're the same, so it's kind of interesting and fun. And
yeah,
it's a whole different style of work. And like my studio, I change from going from my characters or from a skull, my whole world kind of shuts down and I regroup and just start dumping stuff on the floor, and I have boxes and bins and carts and things on wheels, and I just bring it all to the center of the room and just start going.
Okay.
Put them together.
So when you mentioned like those balls, the fact that each one of the ones you've made has sold, does that ever feel like a burden to you? Okay.
Totally.
Yeah. Because once you have something that kind of sells, you have to, I do anyway, feel like I have to make it again or do something. And how do you stay fresh with that?
Right. It's because it's starting to feel like work. Mm-hmm. And I go, ugh. But I think the balls are different because they're so random that each one is individual. I don't know how to explain it.
I mean, I get you, though.
You know, and then price, money is the I keep
keeps
raising
the ball rolling.
And the ball jokes. Let the ball jokes begin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's get Gregory's story in here.
So yeah, ball jokes are always fun.
Gregory's balls.
Yeah, and other thing with the balls, it's more people bring me more weird things at shows now. So that's happening.
Do they?
I've had. I don't know if you get any of this, but I had a box of vintage gynecological tools, human skull.
Oh my God!
I've had the weirdest one.
Somebody brought you a box of vintage gynecological tools to the show?
Oh yeah. Huh. I've had people bring me boxes of tools, things that they're like weird little key fob things, like random little whistles, and here, I thought about you. I thought you might use it. So I'm like, oh, thank you. It's kind of fun.
I've had it in my drawer for 40 years.
Oh, yeah. So people bring me all kinds of weird stuff, and that's really fun. You can't even make this shit up. A guy in Des Moines like, hey, you're the first person I've ever met that maybe could use this. I said, and I was telling this because another collector gave me a human skull as a trade years ago.
Yeah,
I have a skull collection.
You know where he got it?
Well, yeah, I do. It's not important.
Okay.
Are you a cop? Are you a forensic expert? Are you a forensic expert of some sort?
Is there any hair on this skull still?
So anyway, I was telling the story to this other guy, and he's like, well, I got something you might maybe could use. I'm like, okay. He shows up with a bucket full of rattlesnake heads in formaldehyde.
Oh my God.
Swear to God.
And like an open bucket?
Well, yeah, it had a cap on it. It was like a 3-gallon, 2-gallon bucket.
Not glass. You got to pry that off the top.
Yeah, it's like a Tupperware thing. And he said, "Boy," and I opened up like, "Oh, sure enough, bucket of snakeheads. No shit." It's like,
oh my God!
What do you do with? So I said yes, and I got them there in my shop. I got a bucket of snakeheads.
You got a bucket of snakeheads.
So if you ever need one, you call me first.
I know plenty of people on the art show circuit that seem like they have a skull full of snakeheads, but rattling around in there like Jesus.
And so that was pretty wild. I don't know if you've done Main Street Fort Worth, obviously, many times.
Yeah,
and I love that show. But I don't. Do you remember meeting one of the local characters, the guy that always has the colored suit on? Either one day it's yellow and the next day it's green, or next day it's blue.
I know that.
With the hat and the shoes and the gloves, right? And if you've done that show, you know who I'm talking about, most likely.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
His name is Pedro. And Pedro came into my booth and he was looking at the balls and he's like, oh man, this is, I got some, these are beautiful. I got some of these. Oh, I got lots of them. Oh, this is beautiful. And he's going on forever. If you ever talk, he's sweet as, and he's just going on about how much stuff he has now. And I got boxes of them, and he's pointing to these like antique bits I've got in the ball, like these old, cool skeleton keys, and shit you can't find, like it's hard stuff to find. Old vintage locks, weird stuff.
Cool.
In talking, he's like, "Well, do you want some of us?" I'm like, "Oh, sure." So I went to Pedro's house.
No way.
And house is a weird word because he was squatting in this. He lives. Yeah, he was squatting in this place that had no power. A neighbor would run a cord over to him if he needed to use the power, but he didn't want to turn the power on because if the landlord drove by, he'd see he was in there, he'd get in trouble.
Oh my God.
So it's a really bad part of town. And so I go in this guy's house and he goes, "Oh, come on in. And he's like, "Bring a flashlight." So I get on the side and it's so packed, full of shit in the entryway. And he goes, "Oh, scooch in so I can close the door."
Oh.
So I scooch in and I close the door and it's pitch black. And it just smells like turtles. It's just wet. It's moist in there. And I click my flashlight on, and Will, I swear to God, he's like 2 inches from my face.
Oh my God.
He goes, "Hi. Hi. I'm like, oh, this is how the Winter Saga ends. I'm going to feel a little needle prick in the neck or in the butt cheeks. And And then that's it. And you'll never see me again. And
You're part of the storage.
Yeah. Now I'm with the turtles.
That's where I keep them in.
Oh my God. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I in this guy's house?
Yeah, don't go in that room. That's where I keep the ladies. That's the lady room.
I was just waiting for that to drop. But turns out he just had boxes and boxes of organized,
seriously
amazing shit he's been picking up off the ground for 40 years or so.
Wow. And did you take some of the stuff off of him?
Oh yeah. I loaded the back of my van up. I gave him like $200. I don't know. I gave him some money. I forget what it was.
Cool.
So I've got a friend for life in Pedro, but
perfect.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
You're gonna go Pedro shopping when you go back to Texas in April?
Probably, I would do it again. Absolutely. Yeah. So, and the great thing is just to give Pedro a nod. So as crazy as his house is, like it's dangerous in there. There's so much stuff. It's forming tunnels. Yeah, it's literally forming tunnels, and there's hills and there's mounds, and when you get to so his fancy clothes, he likes to wear his yellow suit or his red suit.
Yeah.
There's one room that's just full of clothes, and on the wall, perfectly hung up, is the red suit with the hat and the shoes below it. The blue suit with the hat, the shirt, everything's just
so
completely perfectly laid out on their own special hangers. Each one has plenty of room. I was like, oh man, that's his deal. He just, I don't know. Anyway, things like that happen at art fairs, and those experiences I think are just, so wonderful. And I don't know.
They are, man. I mean, the people that you meet, I don't know. I remember being in a really, really shitty Florida show down in St. Pete somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I met this guy who came in and shit his pants for emphasis in his story. Like he was like, and that's when they stole my chair. And he lifts his hand up and he just goes, and just unloads one in his pants. I was like, that's okay. I didn't want to. I'm glad I didn't catch that on video, or maybe I should have. I don't know. People are good, and then you get that. Sometimes you're just out there on display for everybody to.
Yeah, and that certainly can be hard, and that's certainly the not becoming the gristled, angry old man in the back of the booth sometimes can be really hard too.
Yeah, totally. How do you strike that balance? I was going to ask you about. I mean, I think a lot of times if you have a sense of humor in your work, sometimes it opens you up to being a bitter old crank. Because, if people don't get it, and I know a lot of folks that do have senses of humor, and I don't think about that, is like, how do you walk the line between doing what you want and then being misunderstood and people not getting the humor or understanding the meaning behind the work?
Personally, at the shows, it's Pabst Blue Ribbon is a big help, or whatever local variety of ale you might find.
Yep.
And I think it's certainly easy to second guess and start to question and go, "What am I doing? No one wants to buy this idiotic thing." But then all of a sudden, it happened. And someone did buy the idiotic thing, and they love it, and they take it home, and it brings them joy, and they're like, okay, that.
But that's what it's all about, too.
Yeah.
Does that beat you down at all? Kind of. You don't seem like a big second guesser, but do you second guess your stuff?
More than I should, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough.
I do feel like there are those personalities in the art show world where you've got, people just making exactly what they want, and they make it, and they don't seem to doubt themselves at all. Mm-hmm. And then you get Anthony Pack, and Anthony's like, fuck, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I love Anthony. It's certainly no slight to him, but I think he takes every single one of those expressions in his booth just really personally. I mean, it is hard to deal with the humans.
Yeah, right.
And it can beat you down.
And I think too, like, I remember when I first started doing shows, and I was neighbors with somebody who was the old cranky guy in the back. I'm like, there's just this negativity, and this booth was toxic, and you didn't want to go in there. He's got his nose buried in his newspaper, and just he's bitching about where his storage area. It's like, really, I kind of just said to myself, I never want to be that guy.
Yeah,
because I didn't like it at all. And you got to check yourself sometimes. And
I mean, I used to say I could feel my ponytail growing in when I'd get real cranky. You're like, oh, careful. I can feel, feel that ponytail just start to take form, because it always seemed like the bitter artists that had been through every iteration of art show that were just sour. I don't know. Plus, you've got Beth to keep you honest. Too,
that
I'm
helps
sure.
sometimes. And we'd check each other. She's the same way. We were just the last one we did together was Cherry Creek, and she really didn't have any sales till the last minute, basically, on Sunday. Wow. And everyone else around her was just killing it. And you could just see her just going, like, hey, over here. What are you doing? Bring it back. Not today. You can be shitty on Monday. That's fine. you can do 100%. The whole ride home, you don't have to say a word. I don't care. But right now, we're busy. We're working. This is work.
Good.
This is
good
important
for you. Yeah,
bring your A game.
You have to, but then sometimes I feel like I can't make any money until I really bitterly complain that I'm not.
Well, then, hey, whatever works. If that works for you,
like, okay, let me get to work. Man, this fucking sucks. I hate this show. You're like, oh, hi, how are you, sir? Can I shine your shoes?
Oh man. Wow.
So you guys haven't done anything since Cherry Creek, and you're not going back out until Winter Park, which is 2 weeks from now, or maybe next weekend? Right.
I did Plaza after Cherry Creek, and then that was it.
Okay.
So and we been working on. We bought a property that we're going to turn into an Airbnb / gallery.
Oh, nice.
In Milwaukee. So that's been really fun and time consuming and project to work on.
Yeah, you do all that work yourself too, right?
Yeah. We've been doing pretty much everything except for floor sanding, and I had my carpenter buddies built the deck for me. But for the most part, we've been doing it all, and it's been perfect. It's been fun,
Yeah, that is.
We'll see how it goes. I've never done Airbnb on the other side of it before, so we'll see.
Cool. What part of town?
The Bayview neighborhood.
Oh, I love the Bayview.
Yeah, it's cool. The spot could not be any better. I mean, you can walk to 14 amazing restaurants. Mm-hmm. There's bowling. There's a library. It's close to the bus line. Excuse me. There's tattoo removal right next door. So you got
both sides.
You got. What more do you need?
Yeah, I love Bayview. I was staying there for Lakefront a few years back, and I felt like I was immediately part of the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Like, just went into the local watering hole and immediately met the bartender. Was like, "You never been here before? Mm-hmm. What's your name? Come on over here. Well, you might like to talk to Amanda and her girlfriend. They're getting ready to move to DC." Like, it was immediate, just in the fold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good little spot. So we're excited about that. It's moving slowly, but slow progress is still progress. That's my motto.
Yeah, what's your goal on that? Opening this summer? Or? Yeah,
I think so. Our goal was to have it open 2.5 years ago, but the world did not agree with that plan.
No, not a big time for travel.
Right. In fact, we bought it with hopes to. Milwaukee was supposed to host the DNC convention, and we were like, oh my god, we could
clean up
$3,000 a night or who knows what, but that all got upside down. So yeah, we've been just working on that. It's been kind of cool.
Nice.
Also, as an investment, I mean, art fairs are great, but it's a young man's game.
It is a young man's game. There aren't that many young people doing it.
We're becoming the old guys.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Our ponytails are growing in.
Oh God. Stop saying that.
I can't. I'm sorry. You're going to turn to your side. I'm going to see one and be like, oh shit. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth again.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
You do look great with a ponytail. It's really, you're a handsome devil.
Mm-hmm. Right. If I may go back to, I just read this really great book called The War of Art.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about
The War of Art.
Yeah.
Who wrote that one?
Stephen Pressfield.
Okay.
It's pretty great. And it's just talking about creative battles and being creative and getting through. But one of the greatest lines I took from it was about keeping your place in your studio tight and clean and organized, whatever that means to you. It means different things to different artists, And the reason why you want to keep your place clean and tight, so when the muse decides to enter, she doesn't spoil her gown. I was like, oh, that's so cool. She's coming in. It's just a matter of when. And I don't want her to spoil her gown when she comes in. That's rude.
No.
So I always, I try to keep my studio really functional and because it's chaos in my place. I have so much sharp, rusty, dangerous mountains of crap. It's like,
right.
that part to me is like the work.
How do you keep it? Or, I mean, do you keep it organized at least so you know where your stuff is?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just have your mountains of
yeah, I'm kind of not hyper organized, but I'm diligent about it. It's like, again, that's the work part, going there and doing all that stuff. And when it's time, when the news does enter, it's not work, it's total playtime.
Nice.
It's just no news allowed, no phone allowed, just music.
Nice. So do you take your phone and just turn it off, or do you just leave it at home?
I check at the door. I don't have Wi-Fi in my shop either, so I really can't stream things. So I just kind of put it by the door and try to ignore it as much as possible.
That was my favorite part about last summer and working out in my in-laws' barn. It's like a big metal, barn building, no service, no Wi-Fi. I could take a break and then walk to the edge of the property and catch a signal and see if there's anything. But it was all work, super productive.
Yeah.
Just turn it off.
Yeah. And I think that's also what the commute does, and I hope you find this out too, is when you go to your studio, if you commute there, you go to work. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit around and play video games or fuck off. I'm going, when I go there, it's a half-hour drive, 20-minute drive. I'm committed to going there to get something done.
That's what I'm looking forward to, for sure.
So it's double-edged sword, because sometimes it can suck. That drive can be a fucking nightmare, Yeah. And sometimes it seems like oh my God, how long is this going to take? Or you never know what's going to happen on the highway. But the commute definitely makes a different experience, I think.
Yeah. And also taking my kids to school too. I like that time generally with them, except now they listen to like the worst music, which is I really have been encouraging them to get into their own stuff. And I'm like, I have a really broad range of stuff that I like to listen to, and they think all of that is terrible. Mm-hmm. But anyway, taking them to school like a half hour in one direction and half hour back, and you come back home and then you have coffee and then you do this, and maybe I should walk the dogs. And it's like, I want to go to work.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm looking forward to the very separate space and defined break time when I want it. Mm-hmm. So what are you listening to in the studio?
Man, it's like it's all over the place. When I'm working, it's usually pretty heavy.
Yeah,
because it's earplugs. I have earplugs in all the time, and my machines the tools are loud, so I can't. The music has to reflect that. I think when I need high energy, like your average like Slayer and Tool and all the corporate rock the big ones. But Soulfly, I like the band Soulfly a lot, and there's a band called Igor. This French kind of experimental, weird opera, and it's screaming and it's heavy and it's just kind of nuts, It's almost too much, like over the top, heavy rhythm pounding, just relentless. Whatever it is,
just to echo the machinery and the everything else going on.
But then also, I listen to Public Enemy and Run the Jewels and Johnny Cash and the Bellamy Brothers. I don't know. Whatever. It's Chris Christopherson. I like bluegrass. I listen to whatever fits the mood, I suppose.
Yep.
I love Tom Waits. I've always been a big Tom Waits fan.
Definitely.
But when I'm cranking and working, it's pretty intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like when my dad walks in when I'm working, he looks at me like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? What is this?" Why would you choose to listen to this?
That's why I don't like people coming into the studio, to be honest.
God, you know what? I get a lot of it, but I deal with it because it's mostly my parents and they're like today, for example, I show up to my studio and I'm ready to go, and there's 4 people in there. My parents are giving them a tour of my show. Hi, I'm like, hi. Good, you guys are here, But it's again big and free. Everything's a trade-off. And I get so many distractions of people wanting things fixed or it never stops. It's mostly good because it's people that have things that I want too. They're mechanic or my neighbor or friends and family want something welded or whatever it is.
Sure.
It's constant.
Can you draw a line with that stuff? Or
I don't know. It's hard it's kind of hard to. What are you going to say when your buddy wants this plow fixed? It's like, yeah, come on, bring it over. We'll just do the plow.
You have to deal with. Everybody has their own burdens, but like if somebody interrupts me it takes me a really long time to get my headspace back to where
totally.
I can, like, especially if I'm working on faces and like I'm trying to say a lot with a little, and you have to get your head right in order to be able to do it. And then, like, it resets me, and it's like, yeah, you were only in here for 5 seconds, but now I got to restart and have this, and I might have to have another cup of coffee, and I might have to do this. I'm going to change my brush, and the paint was flowing just right. And
it drives me crazy most of the time. But and for me, that's okay. If they come in, okay, take the earplugs off, take the gloves off, take the welding helmet off, take the welding jacket off, take the pants off, turn the welder off, turn the fans off, turn the radio down. We're already in 5 minutes. Just to say hello, it takes a bit. So it's distracting, but at the same time, most of the people I help they give back. I got people that help me out too. So
it's you're very kind.
Well, and I help this Habitat for Restore or Habitat for Humanity Restore. I make friends with the two near me. They need things repaired sometimes. So they'll get a broken table or whatever, or they want a hand truck repaired or something. So he brings them over, and I weld them for him. And then those guys, they got their fingers on all the good stuff. It's like, hey,
seriously,
yeah, here's a bucket of broken wrenches or whatever. Like, cool.
Old keys, wrenches.
Right, whatever. Random weird shit. It's funny. You had Luke Proctor on. Yeah. Not a fan. No. Just kidding. No, I'm kidding. He's amazing.
Wow. He's such a good dude.
Oh, he's the best. He made me a set of custom hammers that I use. Nice. I think about Luke all the time. Because I have this very specific hammer I wanted that does a very specific job, right? And you just can't. Yeah. They don't sell it at Home Depot. So I approached Luke. I said, "Hey, would you ever consider?" He's like, "Oh, sure, I could do that for you." And I made a prototype of sorts of what I wanted to look like. And a few weeks later, here you go. They're beautiful custom hammers with a little piece stamped in it. Oh God, it's the best. He's such a solid human being.
Such a solid human being. And that was not a bad Luke, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely conjured.
Luke's a giver. He's a giver.
He is. Just really, really solid dude.
You call him if you need your gutters cleaned out, just call him. He'll come over, he'll take care of it. Not a problem. Whatever you need done.
Both of you guys kind of have that Midwest the burden of Wisconsin, of helping and your kindness.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't know how many other artists get this happen to them. I'm guessing you don't. But do you ever have people send you pictures of them dressing up your work for Christmas or for Halloween?
No.
Or for Mardi Gras or for whatever day it is?
I never have.
I didn't assume so. I get
a little hat on your...
Yeah, I get a fair share of holiday decorated hats on my pieces, which at first it kind of bothered me. I'm like, oh, really? Take the hat off of that. What the fuck? But then I realized, like, they love having my piece in their home, and they're just having fun, and they're just, that's not, I'm not trying to belittle me or demean me in any way. It's just like, they're having fun.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it.
What's wrong with being happy? So I kind of love it when I get an email from somebody that, 15 years later, they're still decorating or putting Mardi Gras beads on or whatever it is,
Oh God, personalize it.
It's a whole nother cottage industry you could have for yourself.
How do you guys separate the work when the other person is working? How do you give each other space?
The physical space from my studio certainly helps. I mean, like I said, I don't have any of my work here unless I'm bringing it home for Beth to look at. Right. She right now is painting upstairs. She's going to be painting at the Bayview property. That's going to be her new studio, the bigger space, so she can do bigger pieces as well. So I don't know. We just coexist, and I come home, I make dinner, we watch a show, maybe we don't. She goes back to work. Beth works so much. She works harder than anyone I've ever seen. The hours she spends, it's just unbelievable. So I just respect that and let her do her thing, and it works for the most part.
Yeah, she's driven.
For sure. And I help her build, construct the frames and keep the van running and load the van and do all that other bullshit and make sure the booths are together. And she does all the smart stuff. I do the farts and the farts and the hammering.
Farts and hammers.
It's farts and hammers. That's all I really. What else do you need?
You provide. It's a valuable service. Farts and hammers.
Right. So I don't know. Yeah, we still have fun, and we still love the roadworks. it's still exciting, you know?
Yeah, I do too. I'm excited about getting back out there. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I give myself this long between shows and I start to get stupid and weird and forget how to talk to the humans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure.
do you guys do gallery work at all, or is it just art shows?
Yes, I've done a little gallery work, Beth. Not as much as I guess the answer is right now, no, because there are none at the moment. We had a couple galleries in New Orleans that Beth was selling it and I was selling it too. And
is it Red Truck?
No, never at Red Truck. Beth had a show with Chris Antio though before she just had her own thing going.
Yeah, she's just opened up a huge space here in Santa Fe.
Yeah, I heard. Amazing. Yeah. Good for her. So then I had a little show at Kathy Rose's gallery, and I used to show at a gallery. God, now the name escapes me. It's already gone. Tresor, it was called. Mm-hmm. And it was good. He sold pretty much everything I ever gave him, you know. Yeah. I kind of missed that. We haven't actively sought out galleries either, or looked for them, or even approached them in any way. Which haven't had to.
That's great. I mean, I like them for the off season.
Yeah.
And then I always use them to kind of keep the wheels on the wagon, but I don't.
Sure.
I don't know. It right now things seem so hot. Why take 50% off?
Right. There is that. Yeah, of course. Right. I started doing with a gallery from Pennsylvania, Bruce Renfeld, an analog gallery. He started doing our context in Miami. So for Art Week, I've been doing that a couple years in a row with him. I mean, he does all the work. I just show up, And he did one in Houston and one Art New York, and one in the Hamptons. So every once in a while he'll drag me along to one of his events, and that's been pretty good. It's kind of a great relationship, I think. Hope he thinks so too.
He's a great guy to just. I mean, what a casual dude.
I know.
And he's just completely easygoing.
He's got such good business sense. He works really hard. He gets shit done, and I just show up with my balls. There you go.
Here's some balls.
Yeah,
and he did an amazing install at JFK just recently too.
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah, he's become a good friend. Doing the context show, different, like next level thing. The work was just a lot more expensive, and it was just the crowd, the scene's different, and I don't know. It made the street fair kind of like, street fairs. I could just come inside this beautiful building and drop my work off and leave, and
everybody waves at your work with a chicken wing or wipes the booger.
Right. Yep. So kind of
something to that.
Yeah, but also just the prices are crazy.
Right.
Everything is it's just more,
real art world off prices.
Right. But it was cool to be a part of that and see famous stuff. And
it's tough to crack that. But yeah, I mean, you can really go and try very hard, but you have to be careful. You talk about the prices of the art, it's prices of the booth too. And you can really, in our world, trying to graduate from this to that, get screwed pretty easily.
Yeah, that's a big step.
Yeah,
for sure. So I was just happy to be there. It was pretty cool to be a part of it, There's a story of baby elephant thing. It was amazing. I went to Zambia to make a shoe for a baby elephant that got hit with a hatchet. Because who hasn't gone to Africa to fix up baby elephants? Raise your hand if you haven't done that. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
I get a call from my friend in Norway. His name is Danny. And Danny is a horse hoof expert, I guess is the word. I don't know. Takes shoes back off. His thing is called bare hoof. So when horses aren't meant to wear shoes, that fucks up their hooves after a while. So his thing was getting the horses back to health after damage the shoe had caused. So he started this whole school. He teaches this school in a couple different countries, I think. Anyway, he's in Norway now. And he got a call from this elephant orphanage in Zambia because they had a little baby named Sunny who was 8 months old. And they found her with dragging her back right foot on the ground because someone had tried to kill her with a hatchet or a machete or something. So instead of killing her, they just hit her spine and they wounded her. So her leg was all messed up.
Jesus.
It's a whole different world down there, my friend. I'll tell you that right now. But anyway, they found her and they scooped her up and brought her to this orphanage. Pronounced Lalai. I always pronounced it wrong, but it's in Zambia near Lusaka. And Danny called me and he's like, hey, would you be interested in going to Zambia to make a shoe for a baby elephant? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What? Hello? You're like, what? You know?
Yeah, I had no idea what you're talking about. Also, yes.
Yeah, exactly. I said, well, where, what, and yes were my,
Yeah.
course. So we kind of did a bunch of Skype calls, and we had this little 30-second video of this elephant walking. And like, well, what do you want to do here? Like, what do you expect? There's no power at this camp we're going to. Okay. There's very limited resources. But he had this design. He had the idea. He came up with this paddle shoe thing that had a sort of extra wing on the bottom, so when the elephant would strike the ground first and correct her gait. Okay. I'm like, okay, cool. So I made a couple things up I thought would work. Some guy named Nigel from the UK paid for my airfare. He was this David Shepherd Foundation fun guy, I think. I never even met the guy. And we went to Zambia. And we got there, and it's pretty crazy. We got there, and I just went, what are we doing here? I can't help this animal. What the hell do I know about elephants? What am I doing? So we just got to work, and much like making art, we just kind of
got to work.
Tried to do something, Yeah. So poor little Sonny was developing these huge, like hamburger size wounds on her leg because it would drag in the ground and get infected.
Was this a foot injury? But you mentioned spinal. Is it to correct?
Yeah, so it was a spinal injury that's like the nerves weren't, working as they should.
Okay.
And it caused her to walk with a limp.
Was that something she could grow back out of?
Well, unfortunately, the story doesn't exactly end well. They ended up euthanizing her a couple of years ago because the nerves never healed. And the vets said, well, if they haven't healed yet, they're never going to. So this animal cannot survive in the wild without human intervention. And that's just not there. They don't do that there. It's not a zoo. She's not a pet. It's a wild animal. That, they do their best to protect them. And it's, hard to say the least. So we actually ended up going 4 times. I went 4 times back and forth to each time we did it, got a little smarter, got a little better, a little stronger. A farmer down the road had a welder, so we could actually make things there. The first time we went, I was literally going through this garbage pile behind the orphanage of like old broken windows and aluminum shutters and just weird stuff that they put in a pile. And that's what I made the shoe out of, was all these random bits of shit that I found on their property.
Wow.
And we strapped it to her leg, and it was working. Yeah. It was and then of course it broke because it's a fucking elephant and it's this little shoe. She weighs 8 months. She was 580 pounds, I think it was, like that.
Amazing.
So she's getting bigger. It got more challenging, but she's drinking milk. She's like energetic. She's playing with the other elephants in the orphanage and splashing in the water and being a baby elephant.
Yeah.
So the first time she started walking, it was like, it was such a cool feeling. Both just freaking. So we went back. Version 2 was, like I said, a little stronger, a little better, a little lighter.
Did she remember you?
Oh, yeah. I don't know much, but there was one time I was on like trip 3. I was super sick, just miserable, feeling like just garbage.
Yeah. She
knew. There was a time when I was sick and I was sitting on the steps and the elephant, she walked over to me and put her head against my chest and put her trunk around my head.
Oh
and she looked right into my eyes. It was amazing. God. So it was a cool experience. But the reason why I even brought it up, because Mark Winter, the auto body guy, didn't get the call. Mark Winter, the artist, got the call. You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
Not that auto body guy couldn't go and make a shoe. That's not what I mean. Like, but the guy that I knew how to make things out of nothing and knew I had this skill that could be used in this place. And that's Mark Winter, the artist, And it was a cool experience.
That's
it was
amazing.
Really cool. And then just going out into Zambian karaoke bars where they just sing Kenny Rogers songs all night long. It's like, what the hell is happening? Like, I swear to God, every time we went to these bars, it would be Kenny Rogers karaoke.
Kenny Rogers.
So bizarre.
Did you go and drop a little Nazareth on them? What's your go-to karaoke?
It's got to be Digital Underground or Humpty Hump.
Nice.
All right, stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you used too. All right?
I'll look funny, see, but you will make money.
I can go on. So that's my go-to.
We don't need to do that.
But yeah,
maybe we do.
Right. The elephant thing was pretty amazing. Again, unfortunately, she didn't make it, but we tried,
And you did, and you made a connection there too,
Yeah, for sure. And I still talk to the people I met there, and also the work we did wasn't all in vain because it raised a lot of awareness, even in town in Lusaka. Sunny became sort of a celebrity. Come see the elephant with the boot. So people would come and pay the couple bucks to go and meet Sunny. So it raised money for the orphanage and awareness.
It's good work, my friend.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's an amazing story. And I'm glad you told me that because sometimes I feel like we make work in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And in order to kind of put ourselves out there and kind of hit that human chord.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Very much.
And again, that's the power of creativity and the power of what we do and reaching out and making all these connections and making people smile or making them put hats on shit or getting invited to go to,
Yeah. I was going to say, you've made that connection with people and they care enough to put the hat on your work. It's part of their family. It's part of their tradition.
Right.
It's part of their home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's important work, even if we feel dumb about it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. What do you do again? Yeah.
Mark, thank you, sir.
William?
I appreciate it very much.
It was an honor. I think what you're doing is super cool. I'll keep it up. I can't wait to binge earlier episodes on the way down to Winter Park this time. I think that'd be good.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot. Give my best to your lovely wife.
I promise I will. All right, my brother. Peace.
Thanks again. Peace.
Great talk with Mark. I tell you, I thought that story that you guys were talking about where he was in the guy's house, that was going to turn into like a Silence of the Lambs or something, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely felt like that. It was a kind of it rubs the lotion on its body or it gets the hose again kind of situation. I was worried for him, but he made it out.
He did. And that last story about going overseas and crafting the elephant shoe, that story had such heart to it. I like how he kind of brought it back to that it wasn't about the technical, the creating the metal thing. It was about the heart and about the ingenuity and the creativity behind it. I thought that was a really good point he made, a great story to hear on the podcast.
Yeah, it was Mark Winter, artist, that was invited. I love that bit, not Mark Winter, the metal smith. It's really interesting stuff.
Well, it's giving me hope because I tell you, I thought that I was just going to have to give up and turn to Jay McDougall for a wooden peg leg on this leg of mine. But when he started talking about elephant shoes, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I need to get myself a Mark Winter elephant shoe on this gimpy foot of mine.
I promise that is not your new nickname. I will not be calling you Elephant Shoes from now on. This is it's serious business. Serious business.
Oh, I know. Well, if I can't make light of it, who else can?
Exactly.
So, looking forward to seeing everybody out there on the road. By the way, we did get printed up some new bumper stickers with our logo on it. So if anybody wants to pop that on their van, just stop by one of our booths and we've got them for you.
Yeah, and if you interrupt me while I'm talking to a client, there will be violence.
He will spew venom and hatred eyes your direction. Same here, but no. We'll just have them out. You guys can just come by and grab them. They're free. You don't pay anything. Spread the word. Thanks for listening. All That's that good stuff.
It's always fun to see the stickers out on all the road vehicles as we're driving around. It gives Mark Winter another thing for him to poke fun at as he's passing me getting my speeding ticket.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for listening this week, and we will see you all down the road.
Thanks, Douglas. I'll see you on the road.
This podcast is brought to you by the National Association of Independent Artists. The website is naiaartists.org.
Also sponsored by Zapplication. That's zapplication.org. And while you're at it, check out Will's website at willarmstrongart.com and my website at sigworthglass.com.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when we release new episodes.